Hello and welcome to Inform America. I'm your host, Rich Merritt. Joining us today is Hal Shurtleff. He's the director of Camp Constitution. And we're going to make clear a few things today, so stay with us and we'll bring things around. First and foremost, I want to mention the Boston Broadside newspaper. Personally, I would love to see this newspaper, the new Boston Herald or the Boston Globe, and I mean in a different context, obviously, but I'm sick of being lied to by the media, whether it's in print or on the square box, and I don't own a TV, but I like the truth. I'll figure out what's what, but show me the truth. Secondarily, give them a look-see anyway, the Boston Broadside. Secondarily, check out the nationallibertyalliance.org or .net or .com. They're all, I guess they own them all. But anyway, tremendous wealth of information there. They talk about, if you want to get a committee of safety going in your community, committee men, let me see, the common law grand jury or a jury administrator. I've been trained to be a jury administrator. There's so much information there, and you'll find out that what you've been taught in school is a lie. But in order for you to find that out, you have to look into it. So check out the nationallibertyalliance.org. Now, getting into Camp Constitution, and I think that Hal can bring this around, but the natural order of things, which is common law, by the way, the land jurisdiction. All right, the natural order of things is God, who created man, who created the government, who created corporations. And what I want to ask you today is, where do you fit into that hierarchy in 2021? Where do you fit into that? You answer that question. If it isn't under God, then you should pay attention to start reading the Constitution and maybe sending your children to Camp Constitution. But with that, I'll turn it over to Hal.
Well, thanks for having me on. This is, I think, been like 4 or 5 years since I last been on.
It's been
I do
a
want to
while.
mention, though, our camp is a family camp, so it's not just children, although we have unaccompanied children, but it's for mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. And then we have adults who like to come on their own. Their children may be grown or maybe they don't have any, but they like to learn from our great instructors and have a good time and good fellowship. So family camps, and it's July 18th to the 23rd this year at the Singing Hills Christian Camp and Conference Center in Plainfield, New Hampshire, which is just a little south of Lebanon. And they're very reasonable prices, and we do have tuition available on a case-by-case basis. And we are a New Hampshire charitable trust, New Hampshire-based charitable trust. And I just recently moved up here from Boston, where I've lived all my life, except my time in the military. And at our camp, we teach some fundamentals on the Constitution, which I know you like to talk about a lot in this show. We have other classes. We have things like America's Godly Heritage, American History. We have one of the world's top climate scientists. His name is Professor Willie Soon. And if you go to our YouTube channel and put in his name, you'll find some of his great classes he's done over the last 3 or 4 years. He comes with his whole family, and he lives in the Boston area. Originally from Indonesia, I believe, when he came here when he was a young boy. We have Pastor Dave Whitney of the Constitutional Institute of the Constitution from Pasadena, Maryland, coming. He'll be talking about the jury. That's sort of his major focus, and he'll be there with his wife. And we have other instructors, Reverend Stevie Kraft. He's our camp chaplain, and we trying to get Mary Grabar, and she thinks she's going to be able to make it. Mary is a historian of the First Order, and she wrote a book entitled Debunking Howard Zinn. And Howard Zinn has had such an evil influence on our country because so many public schools, and maybe even some, I should say government schools, and maybe even some private schools, have adapted his book as a textbook, which, of course, turns people away from this country. It's full of mostly lies and half-truths. And I would say that looking at the riots this past, even recently, but last spring and summer and fall, you could say that Howard Zinn is somewhat responsible. Even though he's been dead for a few years, it's the influence this anti-American influence that's that's so pervasive in our country today. So to learn more, you can visit our website, campconstitution.net, and there you can also find our link to our YouTube channel. We have over 1,000 videos. At some point, it's probably going to be taken down, like a lot of patriots are getting their things taken down. So we started one on Rumble. We just started uploading some of the videos. And we do the videos we have are from, we do year-round activities. We host events at the Lane Learning Center in Lexington, Massachusetts, as well as attend events, although not as many events as we've had since this COVID 1984, but we still are out and about doing what we can. And we also have something called the Samuel Blumenfeld Archive, which I want to show you. It's a little flyer here. Sam was a pioneer in the homeschool movement. I should say the modern homeschool movement. He passed away in 2015, and he left us most of his papers and his writings and his recordings. And thanks to some talented people on our staff, I'm the only full-time person. Everyone else is a volunteer. We created this great archive, and all you need to do is go to the website, and there's a drop-down. There's a Blumenfeld Archive. And all we need is an email and a username, and you have unlimited access to this alpha phonics, teaching people, not just children, but even adults who are functionally literate, teaching them how to read. We have courses on cursive that Sam created. And Sam was a stickler for cursive first. And if you ever see a child, not a toddler, they pick up a crayon, what do? They scribble.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is sort of harness that scribble. Sam will point out that if you learn block first, you have that block reflex. So when you learn cursive, you kind of blend the two. And that's what happened to me when I was learning back in the 60s. Today, I don't even think they teach cursive in most government schools at all.
I don't think they are either, yeah.
It's almost like a foreign language, and it's not that difficult to learn. And we also have his recordings. We converted a lot of his cassette. We had these things on cassettes. He even had some reel-to-reels, and put it in MP3 and MP4 formats. And we have his newsletters. He had a monthly newsletter for about maybe 12 to 15 years, and we have all of them on downloadable as free downloads. We do ask for a donation, but again, it's free to people. And we have other great resources as our downloads. We have a lot of historical things that you can download free of charge. We have things about the dangers of an Article 5 convention, which I think we talked about, I think the last time I was here. It's still it's still alive and well, the threat, I should say. We have some great resources for that. Back a couple of years ago, the plastic bag ban was in Boston. And that motivated me to create a flyer, not a promotional flyer, but an informational flyer. And I got a couple of different organizations using their resources to help people stop these stupid plastic bag bans in their towns or cities. So again, campconstitution.net, and you have just a world, all kinds of information available.
Does Chris Anhall come anymore?
She had been a regular. She hasn't been to camp in a few years, and we'd love to invite. There's so many great people we'd love to invite, but we just, it's a week long, and there's only so many. We have had Lord Christopher Monckton. He's actually a British lord who loves our Constitution, and he believes that if we lose our Constitution, there'll be a dark age in the country. In the world. Yeah. He's very sincere about that. He couldn't make it last year because of the COVID 1984. He couldn't leave the country, but we had him all. We had the airline tickets and everything ready to go, but he couldn't make it. But I don't know what the situation will be this year, if he's going to make it or not. So, and if you visit our website, you can you can just ask to be we have a contact drop down, and we'll put you on an email list and let you know about our events and our activities, and also as we get more speakers confirmed. Alex Newman, I mentioned Alex Newman will be one of our guest instructors. This will be his second year. He drives all the way up from Florida with his family, and Alex was actually co-authored Sam Blumenfeld's last book, Crimes of the Educators. You can find a draft PDF on our downloads site. And Alex is an author. He's an expert on education, Agenda 21. economics, just a wealth of information. He's written several books, and he writes for WorldNet Daily and the New American Magazine, as well as others. So it's a great time. It was interesting. Last year was our first year at Singing Hills, which is a beautiful facility, and I would suggest that if you're looking for a weekend event, your church, or even Christian-based groups, you can visit their website, singinghills.org, and I recommend you use the place. It's a phenomenal place. The prices are very reasonable. The food is excellent. Good sleeping. Of course, a lot of people, when they think of a camp, they might think we're in the woods in sleeping bags in a tent. Well, could be, or on some primitive, some primitive building with no running water. And some camps are like that. But this camp, it's not exactly roughing it. You've got some motel-type rooms, and then we have we use a lodge. And we do have families will have their own rooms if they wish, and then we have boys and girls dormitories and what have you. And I think the main building is air conditioned, so it's relatively comfortable all day long. And in addition to the classes that we have a lot of recreational opportunities, which you would find at most camps in the summertime. Hiking and swimming, and we're taking a field trip, or at least we hope to, through Calvin Coolidge's homestead, which is not too far, Plymouth, Vermont, not too far from the camp. If not, maybe the St. Gaudens grounds, which is nearby, not too far from the camp itself. We don't know what the situation will be with COVID. I know that if the government officials had their way, COVID will always be here, and there would always be lockdowns and masks. Last year, we had our largest turnout, and the folks at the camp, they got a lot of cancellations from other groups, and they urged us not to cancel, and they said, we understand if you do, and we'll get a full refund for your deposit. And they said that they will not hold us to our contractual obligations of attendees, which all camps have to do. So we're thinking, we might get 30 or 40. I said, no, we're gonna stick it out. And I said, we do not want to wear masks. Masks will be an option. If people are worried, they should stay home. And they said, no. They said, you don't have to wear a mask. That's something that our staff will when they're serving food, but that's about it. And I said, okay, that will work out. And we had the biggest turnout we've ever had in our camp's history since 2009. And I think we're going to have a great turnout this year as well.
Just to throw in something there. Since I've been talking about the Constitution since 1983, at least through NLA and the show, I can tell you that if you don't know the Constitution, you're really harming yourself. And you need to know the Constitution, both state and federal. But once you read it, it's empowering. And I'll let Hal speak on this too, because I know he's a student of the Constitution. But it's empowering because you understand what the Constitution is. It's a document, if you want to talk about the federal one, it's a document that the states put together and gave to the federal government and said, here, do not infringe upon the rights under the Bill of Rights, the first 10 articles, okay? And then for the 7 articles in the main part of the Constitution, they said, here's your operating manual. This is what you do. And it's very defined and limited. There's only 18 or 19 powers, and they're defined in Article 1, Section 8. If you read that, you understand it. And you understand that the federal government didn't write the document. They're not even a party to it. They're a product of it. So, but if you don't know this, you can say that I'm crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Read it. And read your state constitution. For example, I'll just say this one thing, Hal, and I'll turn it over to you. But in Article 7 of the state constitution here in New Hampshire, it says the people of the state have the sole and exclusive right. Those two words, sole and exclusive, right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state. That should tell you everything right there. The people do. Doesn't say that the government has the sole and exclusive right. The people do. And the people can remove those people that are acting wrongly, or I consider it a government of wrong, because it states that a government of right, in Article 1, you have to go back to Article 1. I don't want to take up too much time because they are the guest, Hal, so.
Well, that's all right.
Turn it over to you.
It was about 3 years ago, a friend of mine who was a school committee member here in Manchester Rich Gerard, asked if we could donate some constitutions to the Manchester High School. I think the superintendent of the schools thought it'd be a good idea if they could find some local group, and we were more than happy to do that. So we came up, I think it was June of 18. It was June of 18, or maybe not, no, I think it was 18, maybe 19. And we presented them with about 2,000 pocket copies of the Constitution. Now, just having a Constitution in your, I don't have a pocket here, but having one with
I
you,
have them in my bag.
it's like we had
here.
a piano in our house. I never learned how to play the piano, but there was a piano there. So having the Constitution in your house or in your pocket you got to read it, you know. And so, and it was interesting. There's this notion that you have to be a trained attorney with a law degree in Latin on your wall before you could even discuss the Constitution properly. Well, the Constitution was not written. It was written. There were some lawyers that were on hand when they wrote it, but it wasn't written to be interpreted by lawyers from Harvard Law School or Yale Law School. It was written for the common American, who by then was highly literate. But you don't even have to be terribly literate to read the Constitution, although literacy is a good thing. And it simply gives, as you mentioned earlier, specific defined powers to the federal government through the President of the United States, his executive branch, the Supreme Court, and Congress. And everything else was left up to the states or to the people, which is what the 9th and 10th Amendments say. And you're right, it is empowering when you know that most of what they do at Congress or at the federal level is unconstitutional. And both major parties are part of that problem, unconstitutionality. And I'll give you an example here. Betsy DeVoe, she bailed out on Donald Trump a week or so before his presidency ended. And she said something about her constitutional duties or what have you. Well, as she was a constitutionalist, she would have never accepted the job as the head of the Department of Education because the Department of Education is unconstitutional. And I'll reinforce that. People say, oh, what do you mean by that? Shouldn't it be? It's been around for a long time. It must be constitutional. Well, I like to visit libraries. Of course, most of them aren't open, or you have to make an appointment to pick up books curbside. But in the days that you could actually walk into a library, and some of them are, some of you still in some areas of the state and the region, a lot of these libraries have library book sales, where the books that either are donated by people in the community or the library is taking out of circulation, and before they put them in the incinerator, they try to sell them. So there was a little library, I think it was Millis, Massachusetts, which is about, 20 miles or so west of Boston. There was this book called The Formation of the Union Under the Constitution, published by the U.S. government in 1941. And in 1941, we know that you had a New Deal, so-called New Deal. Democrats were in control. Franklin Roosevelt, Congress was in control of the Democrats. The left-wing Democrats were in strong control. And they're the ones that it was published by the U.S. printing office, the U.S. government. So in the very interesting book, some source documents I've never seen before. And then it had a little catechism, questions and answers. And they asked the question, what role does the federal government have in education? And what do you think they answered in this New Deal publication?
As it relates to the Constitution?
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping they said it doesn't have anything to do with
That's
it.
the right answer. That's the exact answer they gave.
Yeah.
And we actually have this in a PDF format on our website. If you go to our website and you'll say downloads, you'll find it. And it's about, 500 pages, but you'll find the catechism and you'll find, I can't remember what page it's on, but you will see that. So what's happened since 1941? Well, we must have had an amendment, right? That said the federal government can have involvement in education. No, we didn't have an amendment. We've had states who love, the state leaders love getting federal money, taxpayers' money. That means if they get it from the federal government, they don't have to get as much from the state government, i.e. the state taxpayers at the local level. And so that's what's happening. They've been taking the money all these years, and since it's been done for such a long time, people thought, gee, isn't always this way? No, it wasn't always this way. In fact, there wasn't any compulsory education laws until the 1840s, Massachusetts being the first one. So we said, well, what role does the state governments have in saying to parents, you must put your children in a school for so many hours a day, so many days a week, so many weeks in a year? But they do it. They've done it. Now, does that mean I'm against education? Absolutely not. But you took it out of the parents' control and you put it in the state's control. And it's been done for so long, when people think about repealing these laws, they'll say, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Because, well, we were a highly literate society long before education, these compulsory education laws, and even in the poorest areas of the country, rural areas and urban areas, you still had high literacy. Today, you have mostly functionally illiterate people. You were spending billions of dollars on this so-called education. It's really miseducation. And now you're getting this 16, 19, you're getting these schools to actually cause racial strife, get people to hate their country, the greatest country, in my opinion, in the history of mankind. And then you have also this sexualization of our children, where the 7-year-old boys are saying they're now girls and they want to have the chemical process and surgery and what have you. I don't remember that. I know you're about my age, maybe a little older. I don't remember the teachers worrying about that. I don't remember any of my classmates said that I'm really a girl, or it's really insane. And I think it's time for us to stop. We're sitting around here. We think it's somehow normal for this. It's not.
Well, let me just bring up a point. One of the things, I've been ignorant most of my life on the Constitution and the law. I'll be the first one to admit that. And it is a little embarrassing, but I'm okay with it because I'm overcoming it. But most people think that Congress can change the Constitution, and they can't. There is no provision in law for Congress to change the Constitution. It's against the law for them to do it. Article 7 provides for them, for the change to be made, and they can certainly.
Article 5.
Is it what I say?
You said 7. But
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I do that once in a while.
That's okay. I mean,
Senior moment. Anyway, the thing is, it has to be done through a process similar to what the state goes through. They put it before the people in a referendum, and the people vote for it to amend the Constitution. It's the same thing. The states amend the federal Constitution. When it comes to statutes or whatever they do in Washington, that's simply what affects the government, not what affects us. We don't elect public servants to rule over us. They run the affairs of the federal government. The people in the state run the affairs of the state government, and we run our affairs.
Well,
that's how it's supposed to work.
Congress does have a little influence. The Congress can propose amendments. You need 2/3. And the only way we've actually ever amended our Constitution has been through the first method mentioned in Article 5, where 2/3 of the House and Senate, and it's hard to get 2/3. Our founders were brilliant. I'm not a math guy, but that's my favorite fraction, 2/3.
2/3.
The second fraction is 3/5, because once it's approved, it has to go to 3/5 of the states and for ratification. And they usually have some kind of sunset clause, 7 years, which they can add in. That they don't have to, but they've done that over a few amendments have been passed that way. The other way is through a convention where states apply, not call, but apply for one. Mm-hmm. And then Congress has to count up all the applications and then, call for one. And then you have delegates from the states will sit at this convention and propose amendments. And, of course, we have some serious concerns about that, especially in today's political climate. But those are the two ways that the founders gave us to change the Constitution. And it was made hard on purpose, because if it was an easy process, a simple majority, we would have amended our Constitution out of existence probably 100 years ago.
Well, the reason I even brought it up is, and everybody's familiar with this, the Second Amendment, right? Congress can't come out and say, oh, you got to have this, high-capacity magazines, or you can't do bump stock. They can't do that. It's an infringement upon your right.
Yep.
Period. It doesn't matter if they do it or they don't do it. It's against the law for them to do it. But if you don't know that, how are you going to know if it's right or wrong? You have to read your Constitution. I didn't know it. Everybody's saying, well, you need a permit. This is when I was working in law enforcement. You need a permit to carry a gun. I lived in Massachusetts, of course. Whatever. I won't go any further. But it's just that you don't need what you don't need. But if you don't read it, you don't know it. If that clarifies anything, I hope.
Well, it's fascinating being a New Hampshire resident, or what's a better word for resident?
Inhabitant.
Inhabitant.
You're not a resident.
That's the correct word. Yes,
right.
Inhabitant. my son and I, we had to get our driver's license. We changed over to New Hampshire, and the first stop we made is at a local gun shop, Charlie Company in Epsom, which is at Ronald Reagan Plaza, right off of on 28. And we were there chatting with folks. Love the banter at a gun shop. You know, every gun shop, small gun shop owner tends to be very interesting people. And anyway, we walked out of there within a short time with a couple of handguns, a shotgun, and then we were looking for some sort of AR. He didn't have any available, but we recently purchased a couple. Very easy, as long as you're not a convicted criminal or what have you. We were approved. It was a very easy process. And Massachusetts, we couldn't have done that because very strict. And especially where this crime is even higher, it's very hard to be able to legally own a weapon.
Well, I don't mean to insert this here, but in Massachusetts, the Constitution says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed unless you live in Massachusetts, where it can be infringed.
That's right.
It says it right in there. So I just wanted to correct you on that.
Okay.
I'm joking, by the way.
Oh, I know you're joking, yeah.
I hope people do.
Oh, the Massachusetts Constitution, which predates the U.S. Constitution, in fact, it's the oldest one in the world. That's still, but
Still,
it's been,
yeah.
And if you read the original Constitution, which has not been repealed, some parts have, but not, it says that you have a right to protect your home. Now, protecting your home, it's not calling 911 and hiding under the bed or running out of the house. It's usually you protect your home with a weapon, and you can't protect your home very well if you're not armed.
Yeah. Article 2A in New Hampshire says you have the right to protect yourself, your family, your property, and the state.
And as
Very
a Christian, you have a duty to protect it. I think it's one of Paul's epistles. I think it's the first epistle to Timothy, maybe second, but he said that if you do not provide for your own, you're worse than an infidel. And providing your own doesn't simply mean taking them to Disney World, or get them, Netflix. It means you defend them.
Yeah, in New Hampshire, you have the right to protect yourself. In Massachusetts, you have the right to be a victim.
The right to be a victim.
Good. We got about a minute left if you
Well,
want to
let me
wrap it
just
up,
again mention our wonderful family camp, which runs from July 18th to the 23rd this year. We also have a ladies group, mothers group for the most part, and they've got a couple of weekend events planned, and we actually do marksmanship at our camp. And last year we had about 40 people, young and old, who fired a weapon for the first time in their lives. And mostly people from New York City or urban areas where it's kind of difficult. And we have NRA certified instructors there to teach them the proper methods. So look us up on our website, campconstitution.net. We again and also the Samuel Blumenfeld Archive. We also, by the way, we have a camp bookstore. And I know you made some purchases. Thank you very much. But we have some great items, which I'm just going to show a few of them. Some of our things that we've reprinted. We published some books and bumper stickers and
Is
other
that through
items.
Camp Constitution they can get the books?
Yes. If you go to our website, just you'll see shop and just click that on. And
All right. So very quickly, I just wanted to say, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. Read the Constitution. It's time to educate yourself. Politics is not a spectator sport, and let me explain briefly. I've had people, I don't know how many through my lifetime say, oh, I don't get involved in politics. But they pay for it. Through their tax dollars, they pay for it. Here's my money, I don't want to know what you're doing. Well, guess what? What we have here is total corruption in our country, and it requires you and me, us, to stand up and do something peacefully and lawfully and say enough is enough. So I ask you to do that. I ask you to learn, get yourself educated, stand up side by side with me here in New Hampshire in hell, and let's do the right thing. Let's turn things around, because freedom is very precious. Share this video, please. Thank you, Hal, for being on the show. I appreciate it. And have a nice day. God bless you.